You know, Joan, one of the questions that keeps being asked is what happens when the Memphis Safe Task Force leaves Memphis?
Yeah.
I heard you talking about how they've recovered, 45 missing children?
Correct. There's, I think, 187, and they've recovered 45 of them.
Now, and you said they found them living with who?
Some have been found living with people who were not their relatives or their guardians, and the insinuation there is that they're trafficked children.
Right.
Yes.
So when Biden was in office, one of the things that we talked about all the time was all of these missing kids all across the country. I forget, the New York Times had this big, massive report on this. And, you know, it was no surprise to any of us that had been covering the disaster that was the Biden administration with all of these kids coming across the border. And nobody really knew where they were going or who they were going to stay with, and they lost them.
Yes.
The Biden administration literally lost hundreds of thousands of kids.
Yes. These are the people that were concerned about kids in cages.
Oh, yeah.
When it turned out to be during the
Obama administration. That's exactly right.
Yes.
So the governor was in, I guess, Memphis yesterday. And in addition to those 45 missing children, I don't know if you had this part of the story, but they have also made 854 arrests of violent criminals and known gang members, and they have seized 180 illegal guns as well. So one of the reporters on scene asked Governor Lee, okay, so what about the fact that I'm going to have to paraphrase the question, but what about the people, the Memphians, who live in Memphis, and they're afraid of the federal authorities and the state, law enforcement as well, who have this surge in Memphis. And, you know, people in the community, this reporter apparently said, they're afraid of all of this law enforcement. This is what the governor said.
What I want every Memphian to know, every person that lives in this city, is the goal is to remove crime from the streets. That is the goal of what we're doing here. If you're here illegally and you commit a crime, then obviously ICE is going to be involved in that. But the effort, the goal, the purpose is to go after crime in this city.
I mean, I like what the governor is saying.
Yeah.
The whole purpose is to go after crime. You know what is stunning, and there's a little bit more on this, but one of the other stories, apparently now, because we spoke about, I think it was last week, where the acting leader of ICE, there's a bounty on his head. I forget the guy's name, but one of the drug kingpins put a bounty on that dude's head of like $10,000, $12,000, something like that. And the Democrats were completely silent on that. Had nothing to say about that. And now in Los Angeles, I heard in one of your previous reports, ICE, now they've got bounties on, you know, the agents that are on the ground. They've got bounties they're looking for, the drug kingpins and so forth. They're looking for information on who these ICE agents are. They want information so that they can dox them. They want information so that they can, on their families as well, so that they can do Lord knows what to these law enforcement agents. And the Democrats are silent. And in a time where we have a number of things going on. And I would ask Afton Bain this question if she would ever have the guts to come on this show or this station. Well, you know what? Next time she comes on Murphy Show, I would ask her this question. So when you are out there advocating for the unmasking of ICE, whether it is in Tennessee or wherever, you're advocating for their unmasking. You are advocating essentially for their doxing. Then what do you have to say about these drug kingpins, these drug lords that are now putting bounties on the heads of these members of ICE? And then what happens when they ultimately end up getting murdered? Will you change your tune, Afton Bain, running for the 7th? Will you change your tune about having them unmasked? Probably not, because the Democrats, in my opinion, on most issues, they don't look at these things rationally. And I think that these ICE agents, they are in legit danger. And when you have people like Afton Bain demanding that they be unmasked, it just leads to more danger. And so when Governor Lee says all we're trying to do is we're trying to make Memphis safe again, well, he's absolutely right. I mean, what kind of a nut job would choose illegal alien gang members over ICE agents? Afton Bain. Yes,
yeah.
Sam.
Well, and in his interview with the local news in Memphis, District Attorney Steve Mulroy gave some of the worst non-answers to questions I've ever seen. The reporter interviewing him asks him initially about his thoughts on the Trump administration backing Governor Lee sending the National Guard, and he immediately launches into how, this is their politicking as usual.
Politicking as usual.
Yeah, yeah, and then he starts going in on Senator Taylor being 0 for 5 against him.
Taylor, yeah.
With ethics complaints and all this stuff. And then he's almost complaining about the fact that they've seen a 52% increase in felony cases, a 30% increase in misdemeanors. And then this is the case why we need to have a night court. It's why you need more police officers policing the streets of Memphis.
Well, and here's the thing. You have more cops out there. I'm gonna play the rest of this Governor Lee audio. But you put more cops on the street. Not only does that help the current criminal situation, but it also discourages future criminals. And so if you've got a 13, 14-year-old out there on the streets of Memphis and you got law enforcement out there, then you know what? They're maybe going to stay in and, I don't know, maybe do some homework, maybe do something productive.
Actually, you make a really good point because a local resident, president of the Stop the Killing, Cut the Beef down in Memphis, has called for these young men to find other activities. Don't give law enforcement a reason.
Yeah, find something else to do, man. I mean, go learn. Did you see what Home Depot's doing? Oh, gosh. All right,
Don't get Jones started about Home Depot, please.
No.
Come on now.
Here's more from Governor Lee in Memphis. This was yesterday.
Well, if they're not a criminal element, then they shouldn't be afraid. That's the goal of what we're doing here. Right, sir? That's the goal. We're trying to make the criminal element be removed from the street so people aren't afraid to go out, so children aren't afraid to go to a playground. That's the goal of what we're accomplishing here. And that's the message to everyone that lives in the city. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if you're here legally and you're not doing anything wrong, well, then there's nothing to worry about. Now, you were talking about this guy that told kids in Memphis, will you please find something else to do? I can see myself telling that to a 13, 14-year-old running.
Get off my lawn.
Yeah, his name is Keith Leachman. He's the president of Stop the Killing, Cut the Beef down in Memphis, community activist. And he had this to say when being interviewed by Action 5.
You ever seen THP right here before?
No. Done a lot of state troops around. That was on my street yesterday. 60 cars deep.
The Memphis Safe Task Force showing up in Orange Mound.
I had one of my football players get arrested. Maybe about 2 days ago in Orange Mound.
Keith Leachman, president and founder of Stop the Killing, Cut the Beef, has worked in the Orange Mound community for years, pushing for peace. Reaching out to the youth is a large part of his efforts, especially with the Memphis Safe Task Force in Memphis.
You know, the active guys, I know there's active young guys and older guys. Let them stand down, man. Don't make it worse. Cooperate with the law enforcement if they stop you. Show some respect. Let them go on by the way.
I mean, I love that, and I don't know this guy. Maybe we can get him. Let's try to get him on.
Yeah,
Sam?
I'll reach out.
So let's try to get him on. I do wonder if he also, and we're going to play the rest of that audio, but I do wonder if he also, in telling the kids, find something else to do, is he also calling out the parents? Because if you've got a 12-year-old, and I've said this forever, if you've got a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, 14-year-old that's running around on the streets, then you obviously have a child problem, but you also have a parenting problem. There was a story, this was in, of course, shocker, this was in Chicago. I mean, this was years ago, and a 12-year-old was gunned down on the streets of Chicago. I think, and I'm paraphrasing now this story because I don't remember it, but 12-year-old running around, dodging the police. He ultimately got shot to death by the police. It was a 12-year-old, and the cops thought that he had a gun. I don't remember if he did have a gun, but I remember saying at the time, okay, so this was at like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. The parents are out there blasting the police, and I remember saying, okay, parents, how is it that your kid was out at 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning on the south side of Chicago?
Was it Adam Toledo?
Maybe.
13-year-old Latino American boy was shot and killed by Chicago Police Department at 2:38 in the morning.
Yeah. What is your kid? I'm not, did he have a gun? I don't remember. Here's the problem, friends. There's so many of these stories, but the cops thought that he had a gun. It was something about maybe the gun was in his jacket, but police thought that he had a gun. Or maybe he stashed it. Did he have a gun?
Toledo, Officer Stillman's body cam video recording was released showing Toledo running away and dropping a handgun before he turned towards Stillman and raised his empty hands.
Yes, that's it. And the parents were all up in arms. Oh, my baby, my baby. And it's like, I'm sorry, but your 12-year-old was running around at 2:38 in the morning with a gun on the south side of Chicago.
Yeah. Which if you type in 12, 13-year-old shot near Chicago, the stories just keep flowing.
Oh, yeah. By the way, Governor Bill Lee says the federal Memphis State Task Force is going to remain deployed forever, actually. Apparently, that's what he said yesterday.
I have that audio. I just looked for it. I just found it. You want to hear it?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, hang on here. Now I'm challenged.
Joan, if you offered it up.
Yeah, I know. I should be able to just.
You know what happens to Joan? The same thing happens to me, Joan, where it's like, oh, I've got that audio, and then I've got like 15 to 20
pieces
windows
of audio.
open.
Yeah.
Windows open.
I have it now. You ready? Here we go.
That surge will diminish at some point. But what we learned from that surge, the collaboration that is happening right now between the U.S. Marshal Service and the Memphis Police Department and the FBI and the DEA and the Tennessee Highway Patrol, that collaboration that in some ways has never been this effectively executed, that collaboration will be here from now on.
There you go.
So this operation in some ways may never end. It'll just change in its scope.
Love it.
There you go.
Listen, I think these cities need this.
Yeah.
I mean, they can be, the people in Memphis who are, because that question by that reporter, well, what about the people in Memphis who are scared of law enforcement? Okay, well.
What about those children who are being trafficked within your city who have just been rescued?
Yes.
That's exactly where my heart is. Like, holy cow.
Also, let's not forget that the media, and I don't know who asked that question, whatever, but let's not forget that the media, they are so knee-jerk inclined to be anti-anything regarding Donald Trump or ICE or conservatives these days, that it actually is a really silly question. Because the people in Memphis, and we've seen this, we saw this during the Summer of Love, right, 2020. We've seen this in a lot of different places, certainly in Washington, D.C., where people that live in these communities, they're actually appreciating law enforcement. They feel safer because law enforcement is out there. So, bottom line is, if you're not doing anything wrong and if you're here legally, well, then what is the problem? And there's and I've played all the audio. I've made the point 1,000 times since this whole thing started. There are people out there that are welcoming the law enforcement because it does make their community safer, and they're able to walk down the street and not have, any real issues because the law enforcement is there. And here's the other point, to the guy that said the kids have to find other things to do. So you back up a generation and you look at the 8, 9, 10-year-olds that are not inflicted yet with the, gang mentality or whatever. Well, maybe with all of that law enforcement, they will find better things to do. And maybe their parents will say, yeah, you know what? Maybe I don't want to see my kid die in a hail of gunfire. And actual parenting will go on as well. We'll have to wait and see. But I think this is really good news that Governor Bill Lee is saying that, yeah, this surge in one way or another will go on for quite some time. Forever, basically, is what he said. Because remember, and I love Tennessee. It is my adopted state. And I would say that Tennessee will never be all that it can be as long as we have Memphis. And as bad as Memphis is, and of course, Nashville has its own issues as well. So you've got Governor Lee. And, I'm not always the biggest fan of Governor Lee. But if we can make Memphis great, I don't know, again, was Memphis ever great? I'm sure that it was. If we can make Memphis great again, MMGA, well, then that is better for all of us, even those of us here in Nashville. All right, it is 7:23. Joan's got the news at 7:30. Joan.
Yeah, another floating drug vessel is blown up near Venezuela. Also, why the visas of some foreigners have just been revoked by the Trump administration. Those stories at 7:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Joan. 7:24 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. How many Venezuelan drug boats have we blown up anyway?
I think that was 5.
I think this is 5, right?
5. And there were 6 Venezuelan drug gang members on board that vessel yesterday.
Okay, very good.
Mm-hmm. I got your numbers right here, buddy.
I'm not going to, sympathize with, drug dealers that are trying to bring drugs. Eventually, they'll just run out of cockroaches.
Yeah.
It is interesting. 1303 had a legit question. And I think, Joan and Sam, I do believe that it is a legit question because
what is it?
When we talk about the Democrats and how they are pro-crime and how they are anti-ICE and pro-illegal alien gang members in this whole thing, and 1303 is asking, how do Democrats benefit from this? How do Democrats benefit from allowing these cities to just be overrun with crime and illegal aliens and so forth? There's a lot there to unpack, and I don't want to spend an entire segment on this, but just a few things. Number one is the current Democrat Party. They are, just to use a word, insane, because they are so anti-Donald Trump that anything that Trump stands for, anything Donald Trump and conservatives stand for, they are automatically against. That's number one. Number two is Democrats always like to have a problem to solve. If there's a problem, they will blame conservatives or the Republicans. So, for example, if there's crime in the streets, look at Brandon Johnson. Let's go Brandon Johnson in Chicago, or J.B. Pritzker, where they both say, we need more money. The Republicans won't give us more money.
Oh, and J.B. Pritzker saying he's going to arrest federal officers for enforcing the law.
Oh, yeah. Was that yesterday or today? I don't even, last couple of days.
Yeah. And by the time it comes out of his mouth, a week could have passed. A lot of jowl there.
Yes, he does have a lot of jowl, that J.B. Pritzker.
It's got a couple things.
So anyway, the Democrats like to have problems to solve, and they like to have problems that they can blame Republicans on, even though it's not the fault of Republicans. An example would be, just look at Memphis, right? So Memphis or Chicago, they'll say, we don't have enough funding for housing, for example. And they'll blame Republicans because they don't have enough money for, I'm air quoting this, affordable housing. Instead of holding criminals accountable and actually sending them to jail or, giving them appropriate charges, they'll just say, you know what? We know that, somebody has stolen a bunch of handguns and beaten up a bunch of people and all of these other things, stolen cars, breaking and entering, whatever. But it's not his fault. It's the fault of the Republicans because they won't give us funding for affordable housing. So, and it's the same with the schools. The schools will never accept, or the school districts will never accept responsibility or accountability for their low scores. They'll blame whoever it might be. In Tennessee, they'll blame the state for not giving the school districts enough money. They'll blame the federal government for not giving more money to the states. It goes on and on. It's never the fault of the parents. It's never the fault of the students. It's never the fault of the teachers. And I know there's some very good teachers out there. It's never the fault of the school districts. It's never the fault of, for example, the Metro Nashville corrupt school board. It's never any of their responsibility. It's always someone else's responsibility. That's one of the big problems with the Democrat Party. One of the big problems with the Democrat Party is they don't like responsibility or accountability. It's always somebody else's fault. So when you put it in that context, then yeah, that's how they benefit from, crime in the streets, and bad schools. Because 1303 asked the question, why is it the Democrats, why do they believe that they benefit from their cities being held in a handbasket? Because they won't accept accountability or responsibility. They'll blame it on other people. They can also tell the people that live in their districts or in their cities, well, we're going to fix it for you. Really? How many generations do we have to go in Memphis? How many deaths do we have to hear about in Memphis before they finally fix the problem?
And it's that power grab, like you said, and you poignantly point out that we're always going to have a problem to solve. It's always this or that and the other thing. Just keep electing us into office. Yeah. And it ties right into, as we've talked about, there has not been a Republican mayor in Memphis since 1963.
Exactly. So the question is, do Democrats really want to... 1303 has clearly triggered the host. So the question is, do Democrats really want to solve the problems that their cities face? And do Democrats really want to solve the problems that we face here in America collectively? No, they don't. It is clear that they don't. This is the headline. Nashville property owners and business owners are saying they are overtaxed but underserved. So you remember, I think, Joan, this was before your time. I know, Sam, it was before your time. But we had this debate back, I don't know when it was, months ago now. The debate was going on regarding property taxes in Nashville or Davidson County going up. Yeah. The Metro City Council voted to approve Mayor Freddie O'Connell's budget. That budget was higher. His budget was 15% higher than the previous year. And so they needed a money grab. And so what did they decide to do? They decided to raise the property taxes of people in the fine city of Nashville. So remember what happened. It kind of feels like a shell game. Nashville lowered the tax rate, but when the reappraisals came in, they basically increased their property values so that for all practical purposes, they raised the property taxes of people in Nashville. And now you see some people who they're seeing their property taxes literally double, but they're also saying that they couldn't sell their homes for what the city says their homes are worth. And it's a really tough situation for people in Nashville. Now, I'm going to tell you that, and I'm not talking to you conservatives or Republicans in the city of Nashville, but if you're a Democrat and you live in Nashville, elections have consequences. And y'all elected Freddie O'Connell, and you keep electing the Metro City Council full of Democrats and liberals, and of course, Freddie O'Connell as well. And so if you're a Democrat and you live in Nashville and you're complaining about your property tax going up, you only have yourself to blame. You can only blame yourself.
At least they were sneaky about it this time. Remember when with the COVID shutdowns with Mayor Cooper, people are out of work, they are quarantined in their homes, and they passed resolutions to increase both the residential and the commercial property taxes. And they did when the kind of the protest went out of people signing a petition trying to stop it. That magically just disappeared. The numbers weren't high enough, they said, on the petition.
Yep.
So this isn't the first time that the wool has been pulled over people's eyes about it.
This was from Fox 17.
We think it's due in part just because the housing value has grown so much in our area, which is fine, which is to be expected, but it's going to be a little bit of a hardship.
Marshall Sanders, a homeowner in Belmead, says this is the fourth time his taxes have gone up in less than a decade.
Wow.
And he feels the services haven't improved with the price tag.
Because a lot of families here, especially in Belmead, send their children to private schools because there aren't really good public schools for our kids here. So I think if you're going to jack our prices up, I think we need to have better schools.
Yeah, you know what? It's not only, and I've always said this, it's not only what you pay, but also what you're getting for your money. And he was asking, okay, so you're jacking up our property taxes for the fourth time, he says, in a decade, but have the schools gotten any better in Davidson County?
They might have some funds in those schools if they weren't paying out $6.5 million to some teachers for an undisclosed lawsuit.
That's exactly right. Remember, what is her name? What is that?
Dr. Adrian Battle.
Dr. Adrian. Remember that whole thing? Man, I lost my you-know-what on that story, where Dr. Adrian Battle, the Metro School Board Director. Superintendent. Yeah. And they pay off $6.5 million worth of lawsuits against her, and nobody's allowed to ask any questions.
Yep.
But the big question is, have the schools gotten any better? And I would say no. They have shown some slight improvements in some areas, but at the same time, they are still below state averages in Davidson County.
Do you think you deserve an $80,000 raise if you bring test scores up by barely 10%?
No. I mean, I do, but if it was me, of course. Of course. They still have chronic absenteeism. Enrollment is declining in Nashville. A lot of folks say that while we are making some investments and seeing some modest improvements, those improvements simply do not match the amount that we're putting in. So I looked this up. Math, science, and social studies proficiency, I think it was 3rd through 8th grade, have all gone down over the last 10 years. Yet property values in Davidson County have gone up. And so, again, I would say to the people of Nashville, not you conservatives listening to WTN, but the city voted for O'Connell and his higher budget. They voted for the Metro City Council, all of these folks, Democrats, of course. So that's unfortunately what you get. And by the way, we predicted this. The other thing about that story, you can appeal your property taxes, and a whole bunch of people have. Most of them were declined. A lot of people are like, they had, I think, 19,000 people appealed their property tax increase, and vast majority of them were declined by the city because the mayor needs to spend more money, not cut, but spend more money. And we also, of course, I'll say it for you folks screaming at the radio, we spend millions of dollars dealing with illegal immigration, of course. 10,000 English as a second language students in the city of Nashville. So that's a ton of money as well. By the way, this also means that businesses are getting hit hard as well, right? So you have to deal with higher taxes, and people, they don't have as much money because now they're paying higher taxes. So they're not going to go out to eat as often as they would. This could also, by the way, mean job losses. That ends up as a city spiral that will impact everybody. You were talking to me about a barbecue place.
Yeah, there's a staple in Nashville, Peg Leg Porker. Wonderful food, wonderful family-started company. And, their owner was being interviewed with Fox 17 about how the rising property taxes will affect it. Now, I'll say this. You pointed out how people have less money to spend on it. Then the business has less money to pay their people. Yep. And now you're changing the landscape and the culture of a city by putting places out of business. This is what he had to say to Fox 17. If I can get it queued up. It's muted. There we go.
Level of taxation. Do we only want corporate national businesses in downtown Nashville or all over the city? Because that's what we're about to have, because they're the only ones that can afford this. A local...
Their property taxes have gone up $9,700 from last year.
Well, you know what's going to happen? They're going to have to raise prices.
Yeah.
Right? And so then when you raise prices,
and
that impacts business.
And that also impacts, if you're raising prices, you're cutting employees.
Yep.
And now you've got poorer service going out to your guests, and you're taking away from the culture of Nashville that is renowned for hospitality.
Yeah. And by the way, this is one more audio bite from that Fox 17 story.
And so I've heard from everybody from large businesses all the way down to condo owners that they don't mind paying their taxes, but their property value is much higher than they could ever sell it for in today's market. So they feel like they're overpaying.
Councilmember Jacob Coupin, a realtor himself, says the appeal process is tough. Property owners are paying bills now and might wait months to see relief if their case is approved. And the impact goes beyond neighborhoods, with businesses downtown saying the rising tax burden could force them to cut staff or, in some cases, close.
That's what we said. Now, if you are, and I've always wondered this, and I've never lived in Nashville. I've always lived here's where I've lived: Spring Hill, Franklin, and now Mount Juliet. So I've never actually lived in Nashville, but I would love to know from the super texters, if you live in Nashville and your property values, of course, have skyrocketed, which means that you're going to have to pay higher taxes and so forth, but you know that you wouldn't be able to sell your home for what they say your home is worth. But I've moved a bazillion times in my life. If you wanted to, and I'm talking to you people who live in Nashville, if you wanted to sell your home, could you make enough money to move to, say, for example, a Wilson County or a Rutherford County? Could you just, what do they say, vote with your feet? Yeah. And move out of Davidson County?
Depends on how much they owe on their home, how much they're going to walk away with.
You're right. It depends on how much you owe on your home. It depends on what you could, get for your home and how much that replacement home in a Wilson County, or Rutherford County would be. So
also depends on your age.
Yeah.
Because of it. So, for example, my parents lived in Nashville, right outside in the East Nashville suburb, for going on 30 years. Their home's paid off. They've made additions to it, added on, acre yard. Last time it was appraised, it was a pretty nice sum, bordering on seven figures. They wouldn't get that sum if they sold it.
Yep.
And they've had to wait till being over 62 to avoid the luxury tax, because they don't have a loan to pay off with that. So if you don't take the funds that you gain from selling the home and put it all into the next property, you're going to be taxed on that. I thought we were flipping tea bags into the sea for stuff like that. But,
What did Rush Limbaugh say? Tax and spend liberals? Is that what El Rushbo said?
Yeah.
Yep.
You guys, Jason Weekly, our buddy Jason Weekly, was on with Murphy Show the other day talking about all of this. By the way, Jason Weekly runs the GOP party, I guess, in Davidson County. And here is what he had to say. This was, I think, Monday on the Murphy Show.
They wanted, I think it was another $300 or $400 million to be added to the budget. And so that's where the 29% tax increase number comes from, because we want to spend this much more money.
There you go.
So we're going to raise your taxes to get there. They could have just not spent
the money.
any more money. That is our problem. The city council has a spending problem. We have some debt, but we're not like, the federal government that's in trillions and trillions of dollars of debt. But we are in a spending problem that's just like federal government.
What do we say? Again, whether it's on the national scale or the local scale, tax and spend liberals. That is what they do.